Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Coming up here, according to all the leaks, all the rumors that we've got so far with Season 1 of Battlefield 6, is of course the Battle Royale mode. Now, this is supposed to be dropping on October 28th, according to those rumors. Of course, this is a very fluid situation as we've seen no official announcement. It's supposed to be, I guess, this major shadow drop similar to how Warzone released back in the day. But with that in mind, if the Battle Royale for Battlefield 6 is in fact dropping on October 28th, I wanted to go through and give you guys a handful of weapons you might want to look out for when it comes to what could be good in the Battle Royale. Now, I do want to preface this all and say, because we have so little official information on this Battle Royale, the full expected release date for it, and then the actual mechanics of it versus Battlefield 6 multiplayer, this is a lot of assumptions based off the information we have just in the core Battlefield 6 game right now. We're not 100% certain if weapons will be tuned entirely different for Battle Royale, if they'll have different damage values, velocity values, if attachments will hold the same weight in terms of how many points they cost and things of that nature. So we might have to redo some of this list post-launch, but going off of all the information that we have right now, with the expected release date just a few days away, I found this to be the perfect opportunity to give you guys a bit of a heads up on some weapons that could absolutely shine in Battle Royale gameplay that you probably want to get leveled up as soon as possible so you have stuff ready to build out your custom loadouts and jump right into gameplay. So of course, I'll have timestamps for the various different weapons on this video, but wanted to start first with a relatively obvious one, the M433. This is not a rifle, as we talked about in my top 5 rifles video just the other day, which if you haven't caught that video yet, feel free to go and check that out. A lot of really solid info in that one, but this is just a rifle that is very well rounded. You can kind of play all over the place with this. If you wanted to put on a better zoom scope and fight out to 40, 50, 60, 70 meters with this thing, you could do so. If you want to be more aggressive with this thing with a light barrel and whatnot, you could move around in the close range too. This is a very versatile rifle. It's also the first one you basically have unlocked, so good chance a lot of you already have this to a decent level here, and I think it'll play nicely in the Battle Royale for a variety of engagements. With all these weapons I want to talk about today, there's a few different attachments that I want to point out that could be very valuable in Battle Royale gameplay, just to give you a general idea of where you might want to get it to in terms of leveling. Also, obviously leveling right now as I'm recording this takes forever, so you might have to put some time into some of these guns, but optics is largely going to be a preference thing. I think a few that are going to stand out really well are things like the ROM 1.75 times, then a few like the 2.5 or 3 times scopes. Those on rifles, carbines, LMGs, I think are really going to thrive in that Battle Royale scenario, just as really clean optics, but ultimately that's going to be a preference thing at the end of the day. In the muzzle category, the brakes obviously for recoil control, or the converter for better control as well, are going to be huge, but in Battle Royale I also think suppressors are going to be very, very important, and you can go a couple different routes, like a standard suppressor just simply hiding you on the mini map essentially and hiding you where you're spotted. That's also something that'll hurt hip fire though, so like on SMGs you're not looking for that. You have the long suppressor, which I think is going to be really solid on a lot of rifles, LMGs, carbines, etc., DMRs, because this will actually hide you in spotting and on the mini map a little bit, but then also helps out with recoil reduction. It does unfortunately add weapon sway, but that's also something you can kind of control to an extent by tap firing and learning the patterns and messing around with various different attachments. But hiding you, giving you that suppression factor and getting better recoil, I think is going to be really solid. You also have something like the CQB suppressor, which really is going to be more so meant for SMGs, and we'll talk about this in a little bit there. Then the lighten suppressor as well, helping out with suppression, also reduces recoil and only costs hip fire. So this is going to be very similar to the long suppressor. However, it's going to not hurt your sway. So long suppressor you get a little bit earlier on, you could use that to begin with, and then as you continue leveling up, get the lighten suppressor, and that could be even more advantageous there. For general barrels here, extended and extended heavy on a lot of guns are going to be the go-to, especially ranged weapons. So any of your rifles, snipers, carbines, LMGs, DMRs, those are going to be very, very important, giving you better velocity. In the case of heavy barrels, helping out with your recoil over firing as well. So that's going to be huge for any mid to long range base engagements. Then even on SMGs, as we'll talk about in a bit too, extended barrels can be very good for getting that velocity up and having the hit reg feel a little bit more consistent, but definitely focus on the extended and the extended heavy there. Underbarrel is going to be pretty straightforward. A lot of the vertical underbarrels are going to be great. 6H, 6.4, the classic ones, helping out a lot with recoil. They do end up hurting accuracy when aiming down sights, but that's essentially the cost of getting the better recoil pattern to begin with, and you can help out some by adding in attachments that'll help out with general precision there and whatnot. On more close range based weapons, things like the stubby that are going to help out with like your ADS speed and your recoil, or even the angled, which can do more of the same there, could be pretty decent. Just What you want to watch out for here is ones that actually hurt your ADS accuracy while moving. That's going to add more of an impact on some of the strafe bloom that you're going to get there, which is definitely going to be a red flag and can cost you some gunfights there. But I think some of the more aggressive stubby ones, and then really any vertical one, depending on the price point you're looking at for the cost there, are going to be the main ones you look out for there. Obviously in Battle Royale, this is much more important than over in multiplayer. Extended mags here. So looking at your 36 rounders on a lot of guns, the 40s. When you get up to like 50s, the really large extended mags, they become super expensive. Like there's some 50 attachment point extended mags, which is just absurd. Those are not ones that I think are going to be worth their value ultimately, but anything in like the mid area, the mid tier range is going to be important for Battle Royale. You're gonna need that extra ammo in there for sure. So extended mags are gonna be very important. And then ammo is gonna be an interesting one within the Battle Royale here. A lot of the weapons that have a damage value of like 33, hollow point will be more advantageous there. Synthetic ammo boosting that headshot multiplier even more. But there's also cases where getting the better penetration could be useful because we do have that in-world destruction, and that could help out, you know, shooting through walls and whatnot if you're breaking things down with that. Things like lightweight, speeding up the ADS on SMGs could be valuable as well. So this is gonna be sort of a case by case basis. There's not always one, but hollow point and synthetic have the opportunity on select weapons to be really, really strong. In other cases, they won't be as good there. And then definitely the laser sights is another one here. Obviously, in the case of like an M433, not something you're necessarily always going to use if this is meant for mid to long range, but the blue lasers here helping out with ADS, and then also minor improvement to aim down sight accuracy when moving. This can kind of counter the negative effects of some of the underbarrels there, so those will be super important, but not necessarily in this case. But M433, because it's so versatile, you could go a couple of different routes, and those are some things you might want to look out for. Next up here, the M4A1. This is one that I really think is going to shine, especially as like a great sniper support choice. Just because the M4 is so aggressive here. Being that it's a carbine, and especially just the way that it functions and behaves, it's not going to be insanely effective over some longer ranges, like maybe some of the rifles that we're going to talk about here, snipers, of course, but it also has far better range than some of the SMGs. So it's that perfect middle ground here where if you find an in-world sniper that you really like and you're comfortable with, or you happen to come across two custom loadouts, you do a contract to get your first weapon, and then you actually get the in-world free custom weapon drop, because you can only get one weapon at a time from those according to the rumors. This is one that you could pair with a sniper that I think is going to be really, really solid here. Again, it's going to be a similar highlight in terms of what you want to focus on for unlocks as the M433, really just these main suppressors. If you can get the light and suppressor, that's all the way up at 39 though, so that might be something you have to work towards, but even just a CQB suppressor on there, a long suppressor could be pretty viable. Or if you're okay with showing on the radar, showing on the minimap and everything, the brakes and the converters here initially are going to be what you want to ultimately get to there. Once more, we got an extended barrel in this case to help out with that velocity, so that's going to be solid. Plus, it does give you a slightly faster transition to ADS, which is a nice bonus too in this case. Same deal with the underbarrels as well. A lot of the vertical ones, angled and stubby, the main ones there focusing on moderate recoil control with not really too harsh of cons, are going to be the main standouts there. And then again, the extended mags here, the 36 rounder at 31 is probably what you're going to want to opt for first here, just to be the most safe, have the best safety net there in terms of that extended mag and having enough ammo in those gunfights. Those are really the core four you're going to have to look out for, though. Considering this is a sniper support weapon, you could also be fighting in that close range where a blue laser could be pretty important as well for that better hip fire if you find yourself in those situations, and then the ADS accuracy while moving. But this is one that I definitely think could stand out. General rule of thumb with a lot of these guns, though, you're probably looking at around levels 25 to 30 for some of the general attachments and most ideal attachments you want to be getting, with a few exclusive ones like maybe a light and suppressor or some crazy extended mags being further unlocks that you'll have to get over time. And this is, of course, assuming that you are going to have to use your weapon levels in Battle Royale. They might go the route of not needing to weapon level. We're going to have to wait and see. Next up here, we've got the PW5A3, aka the MP5. This thing seems like it's going to absolutely fry in the Battle Royale and probably have some surprising range as well. This is one of, if not the best SMG in multiplayer because of how accurate it is, how aggressive it is, and this is something that is going to just destroy up close here. I think it's a weapon that I think a lot of people will opt for a basic iron sight on. You can save some attachment points there, although if you really want an optic, you could still go that route, but it's got the clean iron sights on there. Being that it's close range, you could use something like a CQB suppressor here, or a lightened suppressor even, which will be pretty viable across the board. You know, you could also go for the brakes, but because it's so aggressive and it's so easy to use, you don't necessarily need the added control on there in all cases, so you can sort of mess around with that. That'll be a level of comfortability preference thing, essentially. If you don't like the control, opt for a break. If you're comfortable with it and you want to focus on that suppression, the suppressors like the CQB or eventually even the Lightens could be really solid there. Extended barrel here, like I said earlier, these could be really practical on SMGs because we're still only at a 540 velocity in this case, which isn't phenomenal. And considering in Battle Royale you're playing on that larger play space, the engagements are going to be maybe a little bit further out. If this is your only custom weapon, any better velocity you can get is ultimately a really good thing because it will make that hit reg feel a lot more consistent. Once again, as far as the underbarrels go, this is a copy and paste thing, just focusing mainly on those vertical ones and a few of the stubby ones as well. You just want to focus on ones that'll make the weapon relatively easy to use. Once more, extended mag here, 40 rounder, a little bit more expensive, but certainly going to be worth it when you're playing duos, trios, quads, when there's more than just one player in front of you there as well. Synthetic can be something that could help out here, a little bit more expensive though, so not always necessary for that better headshot multiplier, but something that could be advantageous if you've got points left over. And then something simple like a mag catch here for the faster reload, never a bad thing either, but this thing could be a close range beast in the BR. And by the way, as we're going through the various different weapons that you want to look out for, some of the attachments as well, if you guys enjoy this video, you find the information helpful, a like rating would be seriously appreciated. It really does help grow the channel and share the video around. And if you're new here, you happen to be a part of the 56% of viewers watching who are not currently subscribed, I'd love to change that every single day. I got you covered with all things going on in a Battlefield, so if you want to stay in the know with the latest news, updates, best weapons, and everything going on, especially with season 1 around the corner in this Battle Royale, which I am so excited for, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. Next up here, we've got the main sniper that I'm looking out for. I think objectively this is going to be the go-to, unless of course they do some surprise stat changes, which of course we'll be focusing on if that's the case post BR launch here. But the M2010 ESR, this thing's velocity, this thing's overall aggression, I think is going to just be phenomenal here for general gameplay in Battle Royale. Obviously snipers are going to be so strong in that larger map mode, in that larger scale, so this is going to be the one that I think stands out the most because you can get over that 1000 velocity. The ADS is pretty aggressive, all things considered. I think this thing is going to be really consistent here. Again, for the scopes, this is ultimately going to be a matter of preference. In my opinion, at least, unfortunately, you don't get some of the really convenient scopes and cleaner scopes until you do level this up a little bit more, which can be kind of tedious, but preference at the end of the day, right? You definitely want to focus on something like long range ammo, which you get pretty early on. It reduces that projectile drag there, so that'll be important, of course. Extended mag's not as important here. I think you could even get by with just using a basic 5, so that's not a huge worry. Under barrels, again, not super important. If you can get a faster ADS and you've got some of the attachment points to use, that's great, that's fantastic. The rangefinder, especially in its current state where you can bind this to be basically your shoot button or your aiming in button, is going to be so insanely strong in Battle Royale, unless they balance it in some case. But even then, knowing what range you're shooting at to account for that bullet drop and that bullet lead is going to be so important in Battle Royale. This is absolutely the most important part of this entire setup here. Once more, another extended barrel on here for that better velocity. That would be a crucial thing you want to unlock. And then you want to be suppressed in this case, most likely, so you'll have to get this up some using something like a lightened suppressor. It's going to hurt your hip fire accuracy, but you're not hip firing with this, so that's not a huge deal at all. Whereas with the long suppressor, hurting that weapon sway, maybe not necessarily what you want to go for on a sniper there, so just be mindful of that. The ergonomics, like the ADS bolt, rechambering while ADSing, I think is super important as well. That'd be something you'd want to go after. But the M2010, I think, really is going to be that go-to sniper at launch. Another rifle that I think has some insane potential is going to be this KORD. Once again, is a little bit more of an aggressive rifle here, but that's not to say it can't be used over long range, because as you can see, this thing is laser accurate. One of the easier weapons to use in the game, especially once you level it up, but also very aggressive up close and in the mid range as well. So pretty versatile here, all things considered. Once again, optics, simply a matter of preference there. For the muzzles, the suppressors, I think, once more, are going to be a pretty big deal here. You do have the standard suppressor unlocked pretty early on, but then like the lightened suppressor, 40. So it's going to take quite some time to get all the way up there. So just dealing with the basic suppressors, or just admitting that you're going to be on the map, being fine with that, and knowing that enemies might push you because of it, having some accurate suppressors. At the end of the day, you can be suppressed all you want, but if the recoil is not comfortable enough for you to land shots, you're still going to get taken out, even if you're a little bit more stealthy than if you were running a break and you knew players were coming, because you'll hit shots with these, or if you were using the linear comp on there. So just be mindful of that as well. In this case, we only have the heavy barrel, but this is an important one. The velocity is not going to be crazy easy on here, but improves firing accuracy over extended periods, which will be very important for gameplay. The true best of both worlds there is the heavy extended there, and that's only available on certain weapons though, of course. Once again, larger extended mags here. 40 fast, a little bit too expensive, like 40 points for that. You're even kind of risking a lot of points here in like a 45 rounder. So like a 40 will probably be sufficient for a lot of players, just given the value for its cost there and what that balances out to, but something to keep in mind with there as well. Then same deal with the underbarrels as on these previous weapons. Then we've got another carbine that I think is going to be fantastic for very different reasons from what the rest of this category is, and that's the AK-205. And as you can see, this thing is a laser beam, maybe the single easiest weapon to use in all of Battlefield 6. Now that said, you use this in multiplayer and you're going to see, yes, it's a straight laser beam. It's very easy to stay on target, but its damage is not going to be as insane as some other guns, especially in the carbine category where you have like the M417A2 or something that feels like it shreds. That's the trade-off here. You get ease of use instead of insane damage. Like in multiplayer, this thing's TTK is a little bit slower, but I think in Battle Royale, you're actually going to have that as an advantage because, like I sort of alluded to earlier, you can have the best damage, but if you're not landing shots, that doesn't matter. Accuracy is going to be the most important thing in this Battle Royale, and this gun is insanely easy to be very accurate with. So in a lot of cases, you might not even need a full break or a full converter here or a compensator. The suppressors are going to be plenty sufficient for controlling recoil, and you could even try something like a long that'll help out with that recoil a little bit, then eventually the lightened as well. You do have just the heavy barrel here, so the velocity once more won't be insane, but it'll still be laser accurate there. You just have to work on that bullet drop and that bullet lead. You don't have to go too overkill with some of the vertical underbarrels here or even some of the stubbies because of the easy to use control as is. You don't need to go heavier on the ones that are going to do even more control. You can be very comfortable with like a mid-range priced underbarrel there. Extended mags you actually get pretty early on as well, which is convenient. I'm only level 24 here and I've already got the 40 rounder, and that'll be pretty sufficient for a lot of gameplay in my opinion as well. And then you might have points left over if you wanted to throw on a mag catch, change up the optic, whatever the case is. The main ones you really have to look out for on every gun, as I'm sure you can kind of tell here, is the muzzle and the suppressors or brakes and converters there. The heavy or heavy extended barrels, the stubby and the vertical underbarrels, then the extended mag for the most part. Next up here we've got the DRS-AIR. This is actually an LMG, but quite frankly, as you play with this thing, it really just feels more like a heavy assault rifle in a sense. A lot of the LMGs, obviously, much slower, much heavier, and they might have their place in the Battle Royale. There will probably be several that we end up talking about as some better choices because you can spray and pray, and there's a massive safety net here. This thing, though, really is like an AR LMG hybrid, but it's got crazy good damage, and it's relatively easy to use, which is something I think is going to be a nice combination to have in the Battle Royale gameplay. Now, this is, again, a situation of there's some noticeable recoil at first, so a compensator or a break is going to be very advantageous, but over time the suppression and the stealth of some of the suppressors may be more valuable to you, but you don't get a lot of these for quite some time, nearly level 30 on this thing. So early on, you might be using either the standard suppressor or some of those brakes and converters. You do have a heavy extended here, which is fantastic, giving you better velocity and that sustained accuracy while firing. So that's going to be a huge win for Battle Royale. Same deal once again with the underbarrels, nothing changing there. You get a 36 rounder and a 40 rounder pretty early on. I'm only 25 here, and you already have pretty much all those solid options. 55 points though for a 60 rounder is just so overkill. And like I said earlier, maybe the point values change in Battle Royale or something is adjusted there, but that's an insane price point for that extra ammo that I don't think a lot of players will consider worth it at the end of the day. You might also just end up having a lot of points left over in some of these situations where you can throw in some fun stuff like a mag flare if you wanted to. You could reload while ADSing. That could be consistent for holding down choke points or holding an angle on enemies that are rotating and stuff. An LMG like this that's maybe a little bit slower is not always necessarily going to benefit from a laser or something. Again, really looking at those core 4 categories, but the DRS has really good potential as well in my opinion. Now, one of my favorite weapons that I've been leveling so far is actually the SL9 SMG. This is one of the last SMGs you end up unlocking, but this thing, as you can kind of see here, yes, I'm controlling the recoil a little bit, but this thing is a laser beam of an SMG. I've gotten some insane kills already just in multiplayer at ranges I probably should not be doing with an SMG or engaging with an SMG, and this thing is on target and it is insane. And it's also super aggressive at the same time. So you're covered in the close range, the mid range. This could be a phenomenal sniper support choice here. The iron sights I consider to be super clean as well. Once more, suppressors unlocked pretty late. I'm all the way up at 36 on this thing. I've been using it a ton, and I still don't have the light and suppressor. I'm 1 level off on this thing still, so it'll take some time to build up to those, but in the meantime, the brakes will be consistent for you. This does have a heavy extended mag, which I love, so we get great velocity to help us out in that potential sniper support territory, and it makes it even more accurate, which is phenomenal there. The magazine is where this thing gets tricky, and this might be the limiter of the SL9 being the true best SMG in the Battle Royale. You start with a 30-round mag, which will be okay. It's not going to be fantastic for duos, trios, or quads, just because you have the chance of running into more, full health players. But if you want to go to a 60-rounder, 55 points, which is so expensive for 30 extra bullets there. So I really would be curious to see how many players would consider that worth it, which is like the main, I guess, balance of this gun at the end of the day. But really, you just have to focus on that muzzle and that barrel for this one to make it really convenient. And then you want to throw on an underbarrel. Like, I like the stubby on this thing for the slightly faster ADS and some decent recoil, because it's still a laser beam there and super aggressive at the same time. Like I said, the SL9 is maybe my favorite SMG, one of my favorite guns in the entire game. The SGX, I also think is going to be pretty reliable. Once again, this is the first SMG you unlock, so similar to the M433 to start the video, you probably just have a good amount of experience with this thing. I think these irons are pretty clean for the most part, and it's relatively easy to use as well. SL9 maybe has a little bit more range, but this also maybe will feel a little bit more aggressive to some players in and around the close range, and maybe some of the early mid-range there as well. Again, suppressors are unlocked pretty late with the lightened and the long, but you do get the CQB suppressor at a decent level there. I'm 26 and I've already got this unlocked, so that could be a really good option for some of the more aggressive gameplay out there. Once more, I do like that extended barrel, but if you wanted to play more to the aggression, you have things like the fluted light barrel, which could be pretty good here too. Same deal with the underbarrels, of course, and then extended mags here. You get the 36 rounder pretty early on. You don't get the 41 rounder until 32, and it's going to be 10 more points for 5 extra bullets. So that is going to be a risk versus reward conversation you're going to have with yourself there, but certainly a pretty straightforward SMG that should be pretty dependable in the close range. And then the last weapon I wanted to focus on here is actually the P18. And you might be saying, Zach, why are you talking about a pistol in this Battle Royale? Well, because according to the rumors, you're going to be able to choose which pistol you drop in with and actually customize it. And as far as the pistol selections go, the P18 stats seem to be the most well-rounded. Now, that said, I love the M44 in multiplayer because it is an absolute beast. It's a powerhouse, but it's also super risky because if you miss shots, you're probably not going to stay alive for much longer. You're probably going to get knocked in Battle Royale there. So might be a little bit too risky for the early game. The P18, I think, is going to be just really reliable and really consistent here. So that's, I think, something you might want to level up just so you have some attachments to customize this with as you're dropping in. It's ultimately going to be a preference thing here. Like, I hate the iron sights and how those feel, so I throw on an optic for this. You've got the 17 rounder by default. If you wanted 4 extra bullets, you could use that, but you only got 60 points to customize with here in this case. Throwing on something like a light barrel so you have a slightly better ADS makes it a little bit more aggressive there than just a break for spamming it a little bit. It's going to be pretty straightforward. Obviously, you're probably not expecting to use your pistol for too long. The second you get ground loot, you're probably swapping out for a real gun, but because you can apparently customize these as you're loading in with them, this could be a solid option that could get you that little advantage up close if you've got this leveled versus someone with a level 1 P18, right? But that said, those are a handful of weapons that I think really have the chance to shine in the Battle Royale. Obviously, once it's fully released and we have all the weapon stats and the comparisons there, and we truly understand what's going to be going into the loadout system, we'll be breaking down the best weapons and all sorts of tips and guides for your loadouts, attachments, category by category. So there's a lot to come when it comes to Battle Royale content that you guys, of course, are not going to want to miss. So stay tuned for that alongside everything else in Battlefield by hitting that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, a like rating on your way out would be seriously appreciated. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.